I want to tell you stories of two different poultry farmers in Abuja that borrowed money to raise broilers. Maybe at the end of the story, we'll draft out a lesson and then you decide whether you should borrow money to raise broilers. Okay, so I'll be drawing this screen into two equal parts. See my straight line. Okay, the first farmer is Mr. Chuka. Mr. Chuka has always nursed the idea of starting and owning a poultry farm. Okay, but in 2023, October to be precise, Mr. Chuka decided to bring his dream to life. He already owned a portion of land in Lube. If you have stayed in Abuja, Lube shouldn't be a strange sound to you. Okay, so that October he constructed a poultry house inside his land in Lube. He completed the construction of that poultry house, complete, and then he ran out of fund. His intention to launch his poultry house during the construction was to launch it with raising birds for that 2023 Xmas, so that Xmas sales of broilers, you make more money. You get the point? So he wanted to start with massive profits to launch it with that Xmas, but the problem, he has run out of fund. So he went to a microfinance bank. This is a bank. Let's call it MF. MF meaning microfinance bank. At that particular point in time, that's October ending, beginning of November, it cost 5,500 naira to raise one broiler, but Mr. Chuka wanted to raise 400, which meant that he needed 2,200,000 naira. That's what he needed. So he went to microfinance bank to loan money and he collected exactly this amount. Exactly. No more, no less. Exactly 2.2 million naira. Now he bought the day-old chicks and started raising them. When he bought them, he bought feed for 2 weeks, for 14 days. At the end of that 14 days that was considered the brooding period, he went back to buy more feed for the birds and then discovered that feed prices have gone up. We've entered Xmas market, so feed prices have skyrocketed, which meant this is budget now have scattered. Well, Mr. Chuka is not a type that gives up. He continued raising the birds and decided to cut corners. When I mean by cutting corners is he decided to reduce the ration that the birds will be eating per day, so that this amount, what's left of this amount, to be able to carry him to raise the birds for 6 weeks. Second problem that he had was minor heat stress started. Heat stress normally starts in the dry season in Nigeria here. Okay, so there was minor heat stress and he lost some of the birds. When the birds have already clocked 6 weeks, they were now remaining 320 birds. That means 80 has gone. But another problem he had was that he cut corners in feed, so the birds weight were not up to the competition in the market. So he decided to raise them for extra 1 week. Now for this 1 week, he borrowed money from a friend to complete raising. From his initial target, these 6 weeks should have been 2 weeks before Christmas, and it was a perfect time to start selling chicken. But when he raised them for extra 1 week, and then it remained 1 week to Christmas, a bad time to start selling birds for Christmas, because at this point in time many farmers will flood the market with chicken to sell, which means there is a term we call glut. And what glut meant was that the supply will be greater than the demand. If you come to the market that period, chicken will be everywhere. You understand? People that had intention to add more money to sell their chicken to make more profit during Christmas, at this particular glut period, wouldn't have any other choice than to reduce price. Okay, Mr. Chuka didn't bother himself about that. He started selling to individuals, families, friends, colleagues, and people who lived around his farm, and he was selling the Christmas price that he had in mind, and he was happy. But 320 birds is not what he will sell to people that he knows now. You have to still sell to strangers to be able to finish selling all these things. So for that reason, he couldn't finish selling his birds throughout the December of 2023. Some of the birds entered into January 2024. And remember, price have dropped. Okay, so he was using now to keep the remaining birds alive, he was using the supposed profit to keep them alive. So at the end of the day, he finished selling his bird mid-January. You know, in Nigeria, okay, in Abuja, sales of bird is bad, very bad in January. So he managed to finish selling his own mid of January, and he sold it at almost at the same price that it cost him to raise. But at the end, he didn't make profit, and he was kind of running short because 80 birds died along the way. Okay, and the birds stayed longer, which meant he was using the profit that he made from selling to individuals during the Christmas market to keep the remaining ones alive till that mid-January that he finally finished selling them. So he didn't make profit. And remember, he got loan from the bank, he got loan from a friend. So he ended up selling his rubber machine, rubber bike. There is this bike that we call rubber in Abuja. I don't know where you're watching this from. Every young person who maybe feels that they've seen money normally rush to go and buy that bike first. He had one, so he had to sell his bike. Now, the lesson you will learn from Mr. Chuka is that if you are inexperienced in raising broilers, please don't borrow money. Okay, if your budget, you don't have any spare money in case there is fluctuation in prices, please don't borrow money. And finally, if you know that you don't have confirmed customers, you don't have customers waiting for the best, please don't borrow money. And let me tell you the second story. This one is Miss Zainab. Is it Zainab? I mean Zainab. Yeah, that's how they normally call it here. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe the people calling it are calling it wrong. This one happened in 2025. Okay, this year. And when it happened, the cost of raising birds was 6,400 naira. Miss Zainab is a teacher, a secondary school teacher. Let me write teacher here. She has always been raising broilers, okay, but on a budget. She normally raised, before now, when she borrowed money, she normally raised between 20 to 50 broilers. But it got to a time that she wanted to raise 100 because there was an event that was coming. Their cooperative had an event, and she got the connect to be the one to supply them chicken. You understand? So she decided to raise 100. This particular point in time in 2024, cost of raising broilers, each broiler was 6,400. That means to raise 100, what she needed was 640,000 naira. But Miss Zainab, she's single, being smart, she didn't borrow this amount. Instead, she borrowed 1 million naira. She borrowed 1 million naira. Okay, which meant if she used 640,000 naira to raise 100 broilers, she will still be left with 360,000 naira. And this money is what she considered to be emergency fund in case there is fluctuation in price, in case the birds get sick, in case. This is the emergency fund. Any vet visitation, in case. You get the point? Now remember, Ms. Zainab already have customers. She was selling to between that her 20 and 50, and also her cooperative where she borrowed this money from had an event, and they assured her that they will get the best from her. At the end, the cooperative took 70. They took 70 and she was left with 30, which she already had customers she was previously selling to. Ms. Zainab finished selling her best before they got to 7 weeks. She made profit. She had emergency fund, so she was able to repay the cooperative their money. Are you seeing something, a trend happening here? Ms. Zainab was an experienced farmer. She has already been doing this 20 to 50. She had extra money in case there were fluctuation in prices, and she already had customers. Now, before you decide to borrow money to raise birds, maybe broilers, there are a few questions that you have to ask yourself. Okay? Questions that you have to ask yourself. The first question to ask yourself is, do you have confirmed buyers? Do you have customers? You understand? Do you have customers? Can you survive if there is fluctuation in prices? Can you survive if there is fluctuations? That's the second question to ask yourself. The third question to ask yourself is, are you experienced enough? Do you have experience before you go ahead to borrow that money? The fourth question you should ask yourself is, Are you borrowing out of pressure, or you have a solid plan? Do you have a solid plan? Now, out of these 4 questions, if you have no anywhere in these questions, please don't borrow money. Don't. But if your answer to these 4 questions, you know that you have buyers already waiting, you have backup fund in case there is fluctuation in prices, you're already an experienced farmer, and you have solid plan in case anything goes wrong, then you can go ahead to borrow money, because this is the solid foundation upon which loaning money to raise broilers stand firmly. If you know that you don't have confirmed buyers, please don't borrow money. If you know that you don't have extra cash in case there is fluctuation in prices, please don't borrow money. If you don't have experience, please don't borrow money. If you don't have solid plan on sales, and in case anything goes wrong, please don't borrow money. But if you have all this, you can go ahead to borrow money to raise your birds. Have you ever borrowed money to raise broilers before, or layers, or any kind of birds? Please feel free to share with us your experience in the comment section, and how were you able to repay back the loan. That's it for this video, guys. If you are seeing our content for the very first time, please do well to subscribe so that you see our content again. We dish out content, at least one, on poultry related matters every week.